Swinburne University of Technology.
So a little bit of context for me, I suppose, or what I would be interested in finding out, first of all, is obviously what you're doing is having a bit of a look into flipped learning as a possibility, as a methodology. There's some research happening. Can you give me a little bit of context of what you're doing?
Well, Swinburne, in terms of the way it's addressing campus-based learning, we do have a lot of entirely digital learning as well. It's focusing particularly on the interpretation of blend as campus plus mobility,
Yep.
like interactive learning. And so we're really exploring all and every concepts and technologies that can help us do that in the service of really addressing student-centred learning.
Okay.
So we're open really at this stage to all ideas that would fit within that framework.
All right. No worries. So I've got a few things in mind, and then what we'll do is we'll just follow the conversation as it flows. So a little bit my background: I was a deputy principal of a secondary school, taught geography, history, psychology, English, got a psychology major and teaching degree, obviously. I also lectured at Monash University in the education faculty for about 6 years in teaching the psychology method of the education faculty course. So some experience in tertiary, most of my experience is not. But I suppose what we have as Microsoft is lots of different range of technology, which I'll chuck a few at you and see what you think and how it might fit. And there are some tools for full-on collaboration worldwide, and there are some tools for individual teachers to create flipped learning artifacts. And probably everything in between. So I'll show you some of that stuff on the fly. Let's hope I've paid a sacrifice to the demo gods, because I like to do everything live. So there'll be some irony if it fails. Let's just acknowledge that up front. Yeah. So enjoy that if it does. First thing I wanted to talk a little bit about briefly is there's certainly some research that's coming at the moment about different modes of interacting with technology, and there's a great book here if you're interested, which talks about the design of future educational interfaces by Sharon Oviatt, full of research around cognitive science and how the devices that we use, the interfaces that we interact with as learners and teachers actually impact on our thinking. And a lot of research sort of shows, and because we had the digital education revolution in secondary, where kids have now got laptops and they're growing up with a device in their hand as they go through school, and then they come into you guys at university level, it's pretty hard to find demonstrable improvements in student performance. And one of the reasons is, of course, because the assessment measures we're using, and the other reason, of course, is because of the interfaces that we're using as our tool for learning. And one of the reasons I raise this is because ultimately what this book is talking about is that in terms of interfaces for learning, we need to start thinking about how does the design of a learning interface, regardless of brand and device and what size it is and all that stuff, what should that interface look like if it's going to be the type of tool that supports the type of thinking that we want students to do in learning? And one of the things they talk about is this notion of a stylus. Now, it's seemingly emerging. There's most vendors now make a device with a stylus in it, but certainly at the school I was at, we rolled out computers with a stylus in it for kids in 2006. So that's yonks ago, right? So, and the reason is because of what it can do. Now, you've seen the advent of something like the Khan Academy. Effectively what it is a teacher writing on a screen and recording it out. So it's the idea of the fluency with which you can describe concepts is something worth considering, and when you talk about blended learning, when you talk about flipped learning, because I think there's some combination of flipped learning is going to be in blended learning, right? Blended being the combination of face-to-face and online, which is what you've been talking about on the train, and all that sort of stuff. You know, blended learning is that notion of having the best of both worlds. And to the gentleman's point over here about, you know, some kids just don't do online learning well. We've got to cater for those kids too. So all of that sort of stuff comes together. So Monash University actually did some research around this sort of stuff, and this is part of a larger presentation, so excuse me as I zip around. And one of the things that they found in terms of students was they've got an area there at the university called the e-education unit, and they did some research looking at the impact of lectures as a method of delivery on student learning. And what they saw over time was that a couple of things were on decline, in decline. One was the engagement with the thing called a lecture, and the second thing was the results that they could associate with being in lectures. How much did I actually learn from being in a lecture? And those things were certainly on decline, and there's probably a couple of reasons for it. Don't tell Microsoft I said this. Microsoft, PowerPoint and Keynote. Because what happened was when we start creating full finished, high fidelity we call it, structured PowerPoints. So when I was lecturing, I would go into my office and do my thinking behind closed doors on my own and come out with a polished example of what is right and present it to my students. And then slide by slide it all looks very slick and very glossy and very nice, and what students are seeing is the result of my thinking behind closed doors, not me thinking. And there's value in watching a teacher think and annotate and describe and take you on a journey of learning and all that sort of stuff. So they started talking about how could they get this line to go back up, and one of the things that they started to do was think about how they could use ink more and get lecturers to start creating incomplete slides. So how can we start creating incomplete slides? So you have to draw the rest. You have to take the learners on the journey of what you're talking about, and it's a visual engaging thing. We used to use some slide decks with basketball court on it and say, I'll show you a play that I've made in PowerPoint that you've got to learn for your basketball training, and you just animate stuff in and talk them through it, versus what happens when you actually engage in the art of drawing on it, just with little heads with smiley faces and stars and asterisks and all that sort of stuff. Allows the learner really engages with the drawing. They engage with the journey of the story of that play evolving. So as a result of that, they actually started introducing this stylus-enabled stuff for lecturers. And that's what the students were sort of saying about it. 80 to 90% of them preferred it when their lecturer used this methodology, which back in the old days would have just been the whiteboard or the blackboard down the front, right? So it's nothing new. It's just that because we've got digital, we've moved away from that, because the type of digital we have hasn't involved a pen. So 80% said it helped with their focus and 85% it helped with their understanding. So it's no surprise to me that something like Khan Academy appears as one of the first real examples of flipping and of teaching concepts from over distance, and it actually was using ink to do it, digital ink to do it. So by way of starting, that was some interesting stuff that was happening. Now there's some ideas around the way that that's being used and which tools you can use to do that and all that sort of stuff. Ultimately, any of that is possible if you can record your screen out, right? If you can write on your screen, you can record a screen out, you can do that. So that's something that I think is important to the flipping discussion, because you often see flipping being done as delivering a PowerPoint with speech over the top of it. And it's not necessarily a very engaging way to learn. So there's a tool that's been developed which sort of takes some of that into account. This is a PowerPoint deck that I created earlier, and let's assume it's about the human memory system. Don't pick me up, it's been a while since I did my university degree. But the human memory system is something that I might want to teach. Now, I might traditionally be teaching that out of PowerPoint and delivering that. Of course, I could do a screen recording of my PowerPoint with some voice and whatever. There's a new tool that's been added into Office, which is called Mix, M-I-X. And what Mix is, it puts this little toolbar up the top. The website is mix.office.com, and it's free. And basically what it does is allow educators to start creating some digital artifacts. And it sort of gets the benefit of using a PowerPoint, but doing the inking, plus also embedding some quizzes and some learning objects, and then also having a little bit of data learning analytics at the back end. So that's kind of the concept of what it is. So let me just show you quickly what I'm talking about. So under the mix ribbon up the top there, I'm just cut off on the left-hand side, but that one there says record, which is where I can start recording. I can add in quizzes and videos and digital content. So what's happening is providers around the world, like Khan Academy, for example, and many others, are starting to create content that you can embed in your slides as not teaching content, but as learning objects. So once I've created a flipped classroom object, when my students are sitting that, there's an interactive. They might do a quiz at its lowest form, but they might actually be writing onto their screen a mathematical solution to a problem, or they might be engaging with an animation of something or whatever. There's lots of different ideas. You can put in screen recordings and screenshots on the fly, and then once you pass screenshot there, you're basically starting to publish this artifact for the kids for the students to, sorry I say kids because I'm used to secondary, for the students to start learning with. So I've just got a standard PowerPoint deck here that I've started. At some point in time, I got here and thought, you know what would be good if I quiz the kids on the 2 types of sensory memory. Not too much thought has gone into these questions, so don't bag me about that. But the idea is that I can just drop a quiz down. So if I jump down onto a new slide here, you can see that I can add a title for this slide, and then I can add a question in. So all I've done is gone to quizzes here, and it's going out and finding all of the different, I can put a live web page in. There's some Khan Academy stuff. There's some stuff from a company called CK12 who create artifacts. Free response, multiple choice, you get the idea, right? So I've just dropped one of those in, and then what is the main point to blah, 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 blah. I won't bother about my typos. I can shuffle the answers so that they come up in different orders for people. I can allow multiple responses if the aim, depending on the aim of what this quiz is. If the aim of this quiz is to assess once and for all as to whether they know it, then I won't give them multiple. If it's a part of the learning journey, then I might. And I can limit their attempts at 2 different attempts, let's suggest. And then basically we put our answers in here. If I want to give them some feedback, think about blah, blah, blah. I can basically put in my answers and provide feedback or no feedback. Once I've put those answers in, let's say that one's correct. Add another answer in, blah, blah, blah. I get to choose which one's correct. So I'm going to say the center one is correct, the top one's not. And then the idea is I can preview it, but I'm just going to suggest that that's done. Now, once I've created that PowerPoint, there's a couple of steps to actually publishing it and making it a flipped artifact for the students to use. One is if I record now, hopefully it won't start from that screen, I don't know. It's going to. Let me close that. So let me go back to the first screen and record. This is now me creating the interactive elements of this presentation. So I can choose to have video and audio. So naturally, I'm a pretty attractive dude, so I want video. Sorry, was it laughter? Bit rude. And also I've got, obviously a headset would make my sound better and whatever. So I start recording and away I go. Okay, guys, here we are. Bit of work to do before the next class, before the next lecture. So have a quick look at this. There's a couple of quizzes here which I want to get some results from. Here's the memory system, the Schifrin-Atkinson model of what the human memory system does. Information comes in here, then it goes into iconic and echoic. So anyway, I won't bore you with the details, but you go through and you talk about how long it lasts for, and you're inking on it, and why does this go here, and what does attention mean, and this is one kind of rehearsal, and if you want something to last in there, you have to elaboratively rehearse it is one of the modes, and long-term memory, blah, 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 blah. Right, teach the concept. As I skip through the presentation, it's recording the video, it's recording voice, it's recording ink, it's recording whatever, and then I jump to the quizzes. And in the quizzes, basically what it's doing is it's just going to bring that up. It'll stay as long as I want. Go to the next one. There's the next quiz. There's the next quiz. Obviously, this is not a very well thought out learning sequence, so don't worry about it, but you get the idea. And at the end here, there's an embedded web page, which I just whacked in something from Wikipedia, which is obviously all true and correct and well sourced. But there might be some future reading I want them to do from an actual relevant web page, something that is going to arm them for our next lecture. Okay? And stop recording, close, done, we are finished. And basically what happens is that it puts these little videos straight onto the screens, allows me to move them around, to customize them, to change them, to do whatever I need to do.
Guys, here we are, bit of work to do before the next class.
So then the idea is that when you view that PowerPoint slide, the videos are embedded on each of the slides, which go through the descriptions. My ink will now actually appear live as a video. So when I'm talking, it will appear in the right spots at the right time, allow me to explain concepts. It will pause through that presentation when it comes to a quiz slide. So the students will actually be stopped there. So on the previous slide, hopefully I've said, on the next 3 slides are going to be some quiz questions. I want you to answer those because I want to get the measurement as a result of it. And stop talking and go to the next slide, and then they'll be presented with this. They get their options to choose. And at the other end, I'll show you where that actually goes. Let me just preview to give you an idea of what it's created. Oops, I should have done that from a previous slide.
Bit of work to do before the next class, before the next lecture, so have a quick look at this. There's a couple of quizzes here which I want to get some results from. Here's the memory system, the Schifrin-Atkinson model of what the human memory system does.
So I'll just show the
information comes in here, then it goes into iconic and echoic. So anyway, I won't bore you with the detail.
Okay, and then these appear and allow the students to click which one they think is, and go submit, gives them feedback, whatever feedback I've decided. If I have any feedback, it will allow them to sort of slip through the slides and answer the quizzes and whatever else. Once it's done, it actually uploads those, if I can get out of this preview. I can then upload that, and what that does is create the final artifact, I suppose, which can be a video, but a video by nature is not interactive, it's something you watch. And it also creates a mix file, and the mix file goes up to mix.office.com, which is also the place you go to actually get the add-in for your PowerPoint. But you can see here that under Manage, I'm logged in, so all of the ones that I have created here, and you can see I'm halfway through that one that I'm just making, but they will be uploaded there to give you an idea of one that has been created. I can click on, let's say this Ohm's Law one. If I created something about Ohm's Law, I could actually click on share there. It will just give me a link which I could put on Blackboard or on a learning management system or however you're going to communicate with your students, and they will just click that link and then this artifact would actually load. Okay, so that's basically the way it works.
Or you could download it
Or you,
somewhere else.
correct, you can download it, yeah.
So you put it in our own comments area.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm curious. Curious about electricity.
So we won't
Lightning bolt.
listen to James talk too much, but you get the concept. It's delivering a PowerPoint. He hasn't got his video on there, he's just got a picture of himself. But each of these is where there's a transition in slide, and each of these little dots is an artifact where you have to do something, an activity, or one of the interactives. So it creates those little things. At the back end of this, there's actually some learning analytics happening. And if I go to Manage here, and analytics, this is just a bodgy 10-second one, but it allows you to see slide summaries of each slide, what was on it, who did what, how long did they spend there, and I can view that by user as well. So I could get some data about my students as to who did what, how long were they there, what did they get on the quizzes, did they get 100% or did they get 20%, or so on and so forth. So some basic learning analytics. To suggest that it's full-blown learning analytics is not true. Okay, it's not full-blown learning analytics. It's just some information for lecturers about what the students actually saw in this and what they did in this individual artifact. So that's something that you can have a play with, and it creates that little that little menu in your PowerPoint. More globally speaking, any questions about that?
Just what format does it upload as?
It uploads in its own format because it has to keep all of the richness of the PowerPoint plus the ink. Yeah.
So it's a link.
Yes, yeah. So it actually uploads it to that portal, that mix.office.com under your username. The more intriguing question might be, what does it download as?
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
It looks like it's just watched in a browser kind of environment.
That's right, yeah.
So I wonder if it would work across platforms.
Yeah, it does. It does. So once it's created in PowerPoint, it then, once it publishes it, you'll be able to view it on whatever.
They just added it as a web link.
That's right, yeah, because,
You have to have a go. It looks very attractive.
yeah, it's interesting, yeah.
That's cool.
As long
Yeah.
as we can get it into the LMS easily, I think it's
Yeah.
very good.
Well, it's just a hyperlink ultimately, so you could easily just drop a hyperlink onto your page
Yeah, we could. I'd probably prefer to put it in Swinburne Commons.
to embed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something very different about having, now ultimately what we just created there is an offline artifact, right, that you just watch on the train or you watch wherever. But there's something very different about video, and I suppose that's one of the things I wanted to talk about next was this thing here, which is called Link. Now, Link is like Skype on steroids, right? It is my entire life, sadly. It's my phone, it's my instant messaging, it's all of my colleagues, it's people inside and outside of Microsoft. It's if I want to lose my job, I can find Satya Nadella, the new CEO of Microsoft, and send him a message or call his desk phone, which I won't. That would be, we call that a career limiting move. But you know, it's 120,000 people at my disposal to ping ideas off and have conversations with. Now, the more interesting part about it is that when we start thinking about this as a tool, not just for, so Aidan is based in Perth, it's not just a tool for me to send instant messages to him, which I could do, but it can be a tool for me to call him, to have video, and then to start some collaborative work, some teaching and learning via the blended model of sometimes. So we're online at the same time now. We're not on a train and after footy training or whatever doing our learning. We're online at the same time, but it doesn't mean we have to be in the same spot. So this is the collaborate sort of stuff that you were talking about before. So let me see if there's someone here. So Susan. This often happens. And once she knows that this is coming from a public room, she is forced to say yes. So I can see that she was available there. That's coming from her Outlook calendar or whatever. But I really want to... Okay.
5 minutes.
Yeah. Now for 5 minutes.
She's got a meeting.
Okay. All right. So basically we're instant messaging. We're all good. And then I can basically start adding in voice. I could call her phone if I wanted, if she was out and about, but I'm just going to call her on the computer.
Hi, Travis.
Hello, how are you? Welcome to Swinburne University.
Hello, Swinburne University.
There you go. She said hello to the whole world. Now, so I'll be quick, Susan, because I know you've got to go. So we've got instant messaging. This often comes out of working on something together and going, oh, I wish I had them on to talk to right now about that concept. That's what we do all day, every day. The idea of being able to add in video, there's a Link app for Android, for iPhone, for iPad. There's a Mac version, there's a whatever version. And then the interesting part about it though is when I get to this little symbol here, because it suddenly turns this little call that Susan and I are on into a collaborative learning environment where we could do screen sharing, program sharing. I could upload a PowerPoint and ink on it while I'm presenting it. We could do whiteboarding and talk through concepts. I can poll all of my students. I can do a question and answer session. So I'll just do a quick poll to give you a bit of an idea. And polling in this sense is basically just sort of throwing it into a meeting. Everything I throw into this meeting that we're on now is kind of like me tabling an idea. Well, here's a copy of that and here's a copy of that. So everything that I'm about to add into this call is still available for me to pull back up when it's relevant. Be nice. So basically that's a poll, and I can throw that poll into our call. So I have control over all of my students in terms of what they see, whether they're able to respond more than once, whether they're able to see everyone else's responses on the fly, or whether I just sort of get one response for them. Thank you. My name's actually Trav. Well done, Susan. So I can reset it. I can save that out as an image or as a CSV file, blah, 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 blah. So lots of different possibilities there. One of the other things that I could do though is actually, instead of doing a poll, I could do a Q&A. Now, if any of you have been involved in blended learning, sometimes what the challenge is that if I'm teaching in an online environment and I want to, just let me write this because I'm a male, so it's strictly one thing at a time for my brain. Someone's calling you, Susan.
I think it might be a colleague.
Oh, you can hang up in a sec, or just leave your computer and take that call. So what this is currently doing is it's blocked out our IM. Okay. Does she just Monty Python? Yes, very good. It's blocked out our IM because I actually want my 20, 30, 50, 400 students to answer that question all together. And then the next question will come up separately with a spot for early answers for the second question to appear. And what I mean by that is, what is my name? I can do that again just because I'm out of questions. See, it puts a different question here and a different question here. And all of the answers of students for question 1 will be organised under question 1, and all the answers for question 2 will be organised under question 2. Now, if you've ever tried to run a discussion in an IM window, you'll understand how important that is. Because invariably, if you've got 20 people in a discussion in an IM window, you'll have asked the second question and they'll still be answering the first question, and it'll appear under the second one, and then you're lost. So this sort of has that. Thank you, Susan. I'll let you go.
Okay, bye.
Thanks. So I'll stop presenting that to Susan now. She'll just drop out of that call. But the idea of that, let me just stop this Q&A and it'll turn my instant messaging back on. So you can see Susan's left the meeting. Is that all of those artifacts, so I've just put a quiz in there, a Q&A in there. There was a poll in there, which I'm showing at the moment, a PowerPoint presentation, our whiteboards, our attachments, whatever we're throwing into this learning environment is actually being kept there. The other advantage too, I'm going to stop presenting that and I'm going to get out of that call. Okay. So here I am back on my desktop. So that was a call, a bit of collaboration that Susan and I just did. In terms of, so hang on, let me separate these ideas. So that's got kind of like blended learning, right? That's the idea when you talk about flipping being more than just the recording of something for them to watch later, but flipping also meaning the blended learning stuff, then that is an environment for it. Now we obviously use that worldwide, it's our product, so of course we would, but we have 200 people on these calls from around the world.
We do have this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
do have this on our deck, but I don't think we've ever.
Slightly
Well,
and not as sophisticated as
I have the new one. I have the new one on my computer. Yeah. But no one's added me as a friend,
Yeah.
so I can't talk to any of you.
Oh, that's awkward. Send me an email, we'll give it a try, eh?
We need to experiment with it.
Yeah, yeah.
But we do actually.
Yeah, so that's certainly a possibility for those larger sort of sessions. When do you want me to wrap up?
You're really almost out of time.
Quickly. So the other way to think about this, I suppose, is instead of me being on a call with other humans, if I was wanting to create a flipped classroom artifact without using that mix thing I showed you, I could. This is a bit sad, but I could start a meeting on my own, and what this is doing is it'll add voice in, and if I just share my whole desktop into this lonely call, then basically what's happening is that it's now, I'm in a call, it's presenting everything on my computer and my voice, and I can start recording anything that happens in this call. So if I just start recording this now, what I'm doing effectively is recording everything that happens here. Now that might be me opening up a piece of paper and starting to explain some mathematical concept. Now because this is just happening on my computer and my computer is sharing its screen into this call and the call's being recorded, at the end I'm left with a video of all of that stuff happening. So there are ways to use Link as a full-on collaboration tool where you have synchronous learning, which is everyone at the same time, and there are ways that you can use it to, see it's recording out a video down the bottom there. There are ways that you could use it to record the contents of a screen and use that for a flipped learning artifact too. So, there's a couple of ideas.
This has been a Swinburne production.